this is the iPhone 13 Pro Max. This phone I would describe as a phone that you really need to pay close attention to notice the difference, especially if you're coming from the iPhone 12 Pro Max like me. I was a little bit skeptical about upgrading to this phone when it first got released. In fact, I just got this one 3 weeks ago. I actually had my hands on the iPhone 13 Pro Max when it first got released, and I felt like this is just the iPhone 12 Pro Max with a different name. But randomly, I was like, let me just upgrade to the iPhone 13 Pro Max just for the sake of upgrading. And so far, this is the best iPhone that Apple has made. It just required me to pay a very close attention to it. Anyways, here's the review of my iPhone 13 Pro Max. Starting with the display, from a glance, there seems to be no change in terms of the screen resolution and brightness. So it's easy to assume that both displays are the same. But the notch on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is 20% smaller than the notch on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But it kind of looks like the notch on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is deeper, but less wide than the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and that can be explained, well, I think. Let's take a closer look. On the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the earpiece is in between the camera and the Face ID sensor, but on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, the earpiece has been moved to the top edge of the display, so that kind of explains the reduced width in the notch and also kind of explains the increased depth, but the total area is now 20% smaller. At the end of the day, the fact that the notch got smaller doesn't necessarily mean the notch is not there. However, I felt about the notch on the iPhone 12 Pro Max kind of continue with the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much, but I still want a gun. Now, the other upgrade on the display is ProMotion. Well, I wouldn't really say other because the smaller notch is not an upgrade. But finally, iPhones now have 120Hz. And as much as I wanted this feature on the iPhone, now that I have it on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, it's not as exciting as I thought it would be. And I think the reason is that iPhones already have the best 60Hz panel on the market. Apple don't make them, but they are so well optimized that they feel twice as fast as displays on other devices. Personally, I just feel like the jump from 60Hz to 120Hz is not as dramatic on the iPhone as, let's say, an Android or a TV. Now, let's talk about the most important feature on the iPhone, or any smartphone to be honest, because that's all what they focus on these days: the camera. Apple don't really change much in terms of the design of the camera. It's pretty much similar to that of the iPhone 12, and some people might even say the iPhone 11, minus the LiDAR sensor, of course. But the sensor on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is slightly bigger than that of the iPhone 12. And does it make a huge difference? Well, you tell me. The pictures on your screen right now, one of them was shot on the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the other one was shot on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So, what do you think? Personally, I think when it comes to daytime pictures, they are very similar, which means best in class photo. The only thing I would say I noticed is that the iPhone 13 Pro Max seems to be on the cooler side, while the iPhone 12 Pro Max seems to be on the warmer side. But nevertheless, you can't really go wrong with iPhone picture quality. It's just great. Now, when it comes to nighttime photos, I noticed a massive difference between the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I said the other time that the iPhone 13 Pro Max has a bigger sensor than the iPhone 12 Pro Max. This means it's going to be able to capture more light, especially in night situation. And it doesn't necessarily mean the pictures are going to be brighter than that of the iPhone 12, because comparing both the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the iPhone 13 Pro Max, they look very similar from a glance. But when you take a look at the one shot with the iPhone 12 Pro Max, a lot of color details has been lost. Like the asphalt is supposed to be black, but as you can see, it's not black. This is due to overprocessing, because smartphone cameras are usually trying to fill up details they can actually physically capture using computational photography. Now let's take a look at the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The bigger sensor gives it an advantage because it's able to capture more details without having to compensate. This trend kind of continued with other samples I took with the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now when you open the camera up on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, there are a couple of extra features that are new to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and one of them is photographic style. This allows you to process your pictures the way you want them. If you like your pictures to be high contrast, high saturation, or you want them to be cooler or warmer or something like that, that setting is going to be baked into it. It's nice. Now another feature is ProRes video. This is more like an higher data rate video. I wouldn't really say the quality is better than the regular video on the iPhone. This is just going to be great for post-processing. So if you're the type of person that like to edit your videos after you shoot them on your iPhone, this is going to be great. Another feature that's new to the iPhone 13 Pro Max is cinematic mode. Now I would describe this feature as portrait mode, but for video, and it's good. Sometimes, you see, this feature is controlled with software. Basically, the software is trying to decide what to keep in focus and what not to. And to be honest, it does a very fantastic job. As you can see in this sample, it does a very good job at keeping me in focus. But you can easily tell that this is not a natural depth of field at work here. I mean, let's compare the Sony a7S III to my iPhone 13 Pro Max. I feel like I'm bashing the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but don't get me wrong, it looks good. Like right now, it does a very fantastic job at keeping my background in focus, and everything just looks nice and right. But my problem with it is that if you check the edges of the subject, most of the time the depth of field is just not natural. I mean, just compare, like just side by side, compare this to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. As you can see on the Sony a7S III, the depth of field just feels natural. The edges kind of blend with the background, but this The edges are not just, they just don't look natural to me. It's still a great feature, but I wouldn't use it. That is just me. And finally, the iPhone 13 Pro Max cannot shoot macro. I was kind of surprised that Apple added macro because Apple don't really do fancy stuff, but it's here, macro, and the results are really great. Like, I had my phone with the macro. Now, for some reason, there's no dedicated menu for macro in the camera app, but once you get 2 inches closer to your subject, the camera automatically switches into macro. Anyways, that's everything new on the camera on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And yeah, before I forget, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the maximum zoom is 2.5, but on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, it's now 3 times zoom. I just thought I should mention that. The iPhone 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 12 Pro Max has the same dimension, but the iPhone 13 Pro Max weighs more than the iPhone 12 Pro Max, coming in at 243 grams, while the iPhone 12 Pro Max was 229 grams. That's a 14-gram difference. And I'm surprised that the dimension didn't really change. And I feel like that extra weight actually comes from the battery, and the battery on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is just out of this world. Like, it's really great. I'm getting 10 to 12 hours of screen on time. That is just crazy. I just feel way more confident with the iPhone 13 Pro Max than when I was using the iPhone 12 Pro Max. In fact, I feel like the biggest upgrade from the iPhone 12 Pro Max is the battery. And yeah, of course, the iPhone 13 Pro Max now rocks the A15 Bionic chip. At this point, I'm not really going to talk about processing power because up to the iPhone 10, 11, 12, the processing power on iPhones is just overkill. Even the iPhone 8 till this day can still compete with Android that was released last year or even this year. Anyways, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is a better phone. It's just disguised as the same phone as the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone that is using the iPhone 12 Pro Max unless you have like extra $300. I mean, assuming you're gonna trade in your iPhone 12 Pro Max, yeah, maybe you should upgrade. Or if you just want a better battery, it has all these fancy features, but it's not really for everybody. The iPhone 12 Pro Max is still a very great phone. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys for taking your time to watch this video. If you're new here, you might want to consider subscribing or dropping a like button. I would really appreciate that. Thanks for watching. My name is 11 and I'll see you guys in my next video. Adios. 1, 2, 3, let's go.